everybody, and welcome back to Ability Driven Teaching. We're here today with our special guest, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
Hello.
So nice to have you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences?
Sure. How much time do you have? No, just kidding. So I am a mom of 4 kids. I'm a nurse. My background is critical care nursing, but I had 2 children that had some major challenges. My second son was born, had a massive neonatal stroke, and subsequently has, several kinds of learning disabilities, ASD, anxiety, all that from the stroke. And then my third son had leukemia and was on high risk or high dose chemotherapy. So I've actually just started, both of my kids, my 2 middle kids, were on IEPs and, integrated preschools right off the bat for different reasons. But both of them have had some special challenges academically. My older son, who's now a senior in high school, more so than others. We've had quite a journey with that. But I really believe that this experience with my boys has really opened the door for me, or opened my eyes to really what my purpose was. Mm-hmm. So I thought I was going to change the world by being a, health administrator and a critical care nurse. And I realized that there are a lot of things in healthcare, but also now I see in education that needs some healing. Mm-hmm. So as I learned all these tools to help my kids heal and just be the best that they could possibly be, it also made me reconnect to myself and reconnect to what my purpose is and what my expectations are, and kind of re-examine all of that. And I became really into mindfulness and nutrition, and became a personal trainer because I believe movement is absolutely key. And I really dove into whatever I could get my hands on, especially anything about the brain, because of my son, his stroke and the different aspects of the brain. I really wanted to understand the brain and understand what he needed and mm-hmm. how to help him work those alternative pathways so he could, he didn't move his right side. He moves moves everything now. If you looked at my son, you would have no idea. But he's got what you call a classic invisible disability, which is mm-hmm. you can't see it. And he looks like a normal kid, but he has some major communication problems, speech and language problems, processing issues. And even my son that had the high dose chemo, although he does really well in school, he's one of those kids that slips through the crack. So we're actually right now in the process of getting him a 504. He's 15 now. So my journey has really taken me on a different healing path. And I really, my work right now, I started Butterfly Family Wellness about 15 years ago. And my work now is helping people calm the chaos in their lives so they can take back their power over their health and their happiness and well-being. And I work with a lot of kids, a lot of adults, a lot of healthcare workers, educators. And one of my favorite things to do is really teach about tools to pause and connect to your own mind, body, spirit, energy needs, so you can calm yourself and access your higher brain function and your rational brain. Or so the upstairs brain. I don't know if you've ever read The Whole Brain Child by Dan Siegel, but I love that book. And he talks about basically when you're in fight or flight and stressed, you can't access your rational thoughts. So a big part of what I do is teaching people how to first calm themselves, connect to the messages, connect to what they need, and then start in the present moment to make choices and reframe their thoughts so they can take back their power over their life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Trial by fire.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome. And you said you have 4 boys?
I do. Yeah. My oldest
Wow.
is a junior in college and my youngest is 12, 7th grade. Wow. So I'm in it for a while.
Yeah. Well, more power to you. That's a lot of boys.
Yes, it is. Oh, yes. My grocery bill is crazy.
I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure it is.
Can't imagine all teenage boys.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, yeah. I always say it smells in my house and there's no food.
Oh, man. Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like you have some great stories to share with us.
Yes.
So to get us started, we just have a fun starter question.
Mhm.
So the world is your oyster. What would your dream job be?
Oh man. I would say a talk show host. Like I want to be Oprah. Really? I mean, can that be a dream job? I don't
Yes.
know, but I'd like to do what Oprah does and like talk shows and
Mm-hmm.
travel and really use that platform to do really good things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. You get a car. You get a car.
exactly.
Fun to
My
say.
favorite things, you all get them.
Yeah. You get an iPad. You get an
Yep,
iPad.
yep.
Love it. Yeah. Oh, that might change my dream
Be
job.
in our audience and receive that. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. I would love that too. That would be awesome.
But
Yeah, my dream job, I guess, is a little similar to yours. I've been thinking about this all day, but I think I've decided that I would like to have a podcasting empire and like just have
Ooh.
all the different podcasts, like have a true crime podcast, an education-based one, a comedy one, and have different like co-hosts and
I'd like
guests.
to know what your comedy one would be about.
I'm funny sometimes.
Sometimes. It takes a special person to get your humor, though. I'm talking about myself. I'm the special person.
Yeah, I'd have to have a good co-host on that one. But yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No,
But yeah, I would just like to have all the podcasts because that's literally all I do all day is just listen to different podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about
Well, so I wasn't going to say it because I don't want to get a lot of flack for it, but it is what it is. So I've always said, like, I love my job. And so it was funny. I recently got married. We had this is just a little background. We had this game at my bridal shower where my husband answered a bunch of questions about me and I had to pick the guesses or I had to pick his questions his answers. So anyway, someone asked him what my dream job would be. Forgetting that I used to say this all the time, I said, well, I'm kind of living my dream job. I love being a teacher and I'm doing a little more with that. So I'm living my dream job. My sister looks at me and she's like, that's not what he said. And I was like, well, what did he say? And he said, a stay-at-home mom with a PhD. Which is true.
Yeah.
I have a couple people in my life who I look up to who have their PhD in child psychology and they have background in education and they have fantastic children. And that's just kind of, I have a lot of passion for working with kids. I have a lot of passion for what goes into raising healthy, well-rounded children. And so I've always been like, that would just be my dream job is to raise little versions of myself to be better people. And that would be awesome. I think my other, side to that would be a bartender. I think being a bartender would be really fun. I've done it before a couple of times. Yes, yeah, exactly. There you go.
Mommy's sippy cup.
It would go together. I love that reel where it's like mommy's happy juice. Yeah.
Real.
It definitely is. It would be a lot of fun. And I feel like teachers have a lot of qualities that you would need to be a good bartender. You memorize names, you memorize accommodations. Like I was really having a good time when I used to bartend because I knew that Johnny wanted Jack and Coke every time he came up to me and I had it ready for him as I saw him walking up to the bar. So I'd get great tips because I had a really good memory. So there we go. Stay-at-home mom with a PhD, bartender on the side.
Just be a stay-at-home mom who opens up a bar.
Yeah.
What's the book?
It's called The Power of Showing Up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like my favorite book now. Any parent, any teacher should read this book. Dan Siegel, Tina Payne Bryson. And it's all about like how to show up for those kids and how to connect to them. So kids feel seen and safe and secure. Seen, safe, secure, and soothed.
I love that. We'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
And read it while you're staying at home.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. My husband says that's probably not happening. But that's okay. I like teaching, so we're good. All right.
Yes.
So let's get into it, right?
Yeah. All right. So how can you help your child to advocate for themselves? And I think this is a great question for you.
I got to say, the first thing as a parent you need to do, I think, is to really let go of your expectations and let go of what everybody else thinks you should do or need to do, or what, Peggy's doing with her kids and this person's, and you really need to like tune into who is your child and what do they need. And then you as a parent first need to advocate for your kids and also advocate for yourself. So it's like examples. And by doing that and teaching your kids that, they start to understand how to use their voice. Because I see so often in my practice that people don't speak up for themselves and they feel powerless. But what I say all the time, we're giving our power away to other people, because when we let other people tell us what our value is or tell us what we need to be doing or should be doing and all that without really understanding ourselves what we need, and where our challenges are. So what do we need in the moment? Then we give our power away. And I think that what I've done, and like when they're little, obviously it's hard for kids to advocate for themselves, and it's not a realistic thing to expect young kids to advocate for themselves regularly. But helping your kids process situations, like when they're frustrated or when they're angry, or I hear so many kids that say, I'm so stupid. And, you know, mine used to do that. Mine used to hide under the bed when it was time to go to school. And I remember he had a behavioral issue at school, which anybody that works with kids knows that when a child is acting out behaviorally, it's because they don't feel safe or they don't feel seen and they don't feel understood, and it's frustration. They don't know what to do with those feelings. So I remember vividly my son, I had a tough time getting him to school. He had tremendous anxiety because he didn't feel like anybody understood him. And when, and I want to say it was probably like second grade, apparently he ran out of the school. Like he was in a situation and he got scared and it was that fight or flight. He ran out of the school. So I get called and the school nurse and the principal say to me, now you make sure that he doesn't get any treats because he was very naughty. And in front of my son, I had to take a couple deep breaths because I was ready to, Mama Bear was about to come out.
Yeah.
And I said, excuse me, but my son, who's got separation anxiety, just tried to run out of a school that's supposed to be a safe place for him. That is a child that you're failing, that you didn't show up for, you didn't see, and things got out of control. So don't you dare tell me that he doesn't need any treats, because this was not him. This was a failure on the adults in his world.
Yeah.
So my son heard me advocate for him. And then I processed that situation with him. And afterwards processed that situation with the teachers, with the school nurse, and with the principal. So those are sort of my biggest tips, is help continually sort of processing with your kid and helping them understand, okay, so what happened was you felt scared or you didn't feel heard. So you help them get words and make the connections to what's going on in their world, and then what that made them feel like, and then help them understand what could you have done in that moment when you were feeling this way. How could you have let, you know, Miss So-and-so know that you were getting frustrated or you needed, so those kinds of things. And then eventually, like in middle school, I expect my kids will start to advocate for themselves. I think like around 5th grade is a grade where kids can really start to speak up for themselves. And it's really important you teach them how to do so respectfully. But by the time they're in middle school, just asking teachers for help or that's showing them to advocate. I think so many parents want to sweep the path and fix everything and want to make their child's road easier, which I get. We all do. Nobody wants to see your child struggle. I actually had a special education teacher in middle school give my son the answers because it was making her uncomfortable to watch him struggle. So, you know, that's a you problem. That's you and your expectations trumping the needs of that child. So sometimes I think that it's not appropriate. I mean, my son said to the teacher, I guess at one point, he said, you know, I really want to learn how to do this myself.
Good for him.
Yeah, but that's because I gave him that voice and I gave him permission. But yeah, I mean, I think those are the key. So understanding who you are, modeling, processing stuff with your kid when they're younger, and then processing it when they're older. Because, you know, I have one of my kids really has a hard time speaking up still. He's such a pleaser that he doesn't want to disappoint, or, you know, doesn't want to feel stupid or all this stuff. And so we just process that, and we say, okay, but if you don't ask for help, they don't know that you need help. Or if you don't, he just got got put into, this is the son that we're doing a 504 with. He got put into a learning strategies or a learning center, and he loves it because it's like his person that he feels safe and comfortable with, that he can process with, that sees him, right? So every child needs somebody like that in their world. So as an adult, as a parent, even as a teacher, that's your role, right?
Yeah, I love that. I like how you're kind of like that. What I'm trying to say is that that's really powerful, that debriefing moment that you're having with your kid, especially at a young age. Because I feel like, yes, like naturally, a lot of times we do a lot of modeling and we do a lot of things to show kids that like they deserve X, Y, and Z. But that debriefing time that you're having with your kid involves them in a way that gives them back some of that power, even at a young age. I feel like that has to be so powerful for that kid to sit there and be like, oh, wow, my mom stood up for me. And not only is my mom standing up for me and modeling that I can stand up for myself, but like she's involving me in this like adult seeming conversation and treating me like an adult who's in charge of my life. I feel like a lot of times we as adults, we want to help, but by helping a lot, we kind of take control and we're like, okay, we're going to help you do this and we're going to do this. That debriefing time gives them a little more ownership in that situation, which seems really powerful.
Yeah, and it teaches them resiliency. It teaches them how to problem solve and conflict resolution. I'm actually giving a talk in the fall for a nursing school faculty, and one of the things that they were saying is they're training nurses, and one of the things they want is critical thinking, right? And that to me is what's lacking in our students and in our kids these days, because we don't give them a chance to critically think and to problem solve. We want to solve their problems for them. So then we wonder when they get into being, you know, college age or even adults, they still need hand holding. Because you never let them get those tools of problem solving and resiliency. And it's never too late never too late and never too early to start, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's awesome.
And with your son running out of the school, I think that we as adults need to realize that all behavior is communication. Yes. So what is that behavior communicating?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? We're human, and we have days where we get completely overwhelmed, particularly now with COVID. People are stressed out of their mind. All right. Like, be it nursing, be it doctors. My husband's a physician. You know, in the hospital, people are stressed out. In schools, people are stressed out. I was just talking to a friend of mine who is a school psychologist, and she's being told she has to teach some classes because they're short-staffed. So she also has what she has to do as a school psychologist, which we all know. Yeah. There's more demand for them now because there are a lot of kids that are struggling right now. And then to basically have these other demands, and we're human, we get stressed, we feel overwhelmed, and we sort of what our intention, which is to help kids and to process what brought us into this profession, all of a sudden we're not able to do. It's taking us away from what our purpose and our passion is. And we're all human, but we need to first like recognize, okay, take a deep breath. This is what I call pause with purpose. Like, take a deep breath and just center yourself, because our reaction is not what they need. They need our response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you were saying that your son, and I know a lot of other children struggle with this too, was struggling with self-confidence and feeling like that he was good at something. So how can you help your child to know what their strengths actually are?
So I think that in the world that we live in, particularly my world, I live in a very high achieving community where the focus and the emphasis is on achievement, and you know, in sports and in academics, or just kind of not on character and not on sort of that fine tune. So I think that what I've always done with my boys is I've tried to help them when I see something that they've done really well. I've tried to praise it, but also to say, look what you just did. You just did XYZ, and you did this because this is what you're really good at, and help kids understand what their strengths are. What, like one of my sons, for example, he's unbelievable at anything that involves eye-hand coordination. Like, I mean, badminton, he plays lacrosse, but he's not fast, right? Like he's not like speed-wise, he's not fast. So he'd get really frustrated when he wasn't picked for certain things, or when people would praise and give all the attention to this person who was sort of the flashy player at things.
Mm-hmm.
But the person that was like the precise, like catch and throw person, wouldn't get as much attention. And I'd say, like, listen, if somebody's looking for the flash, that's not you. And you just got to know that and own that. But if somebody needs the power and the precision, that's you. So I feel like so many times we try to maybe pacify our kids and be like, oh, you're really good at that, you're a great athlete. But like, they know when we're blowing smoke. Like, they know what they're good at. And so I think, like, and even owning yourself, like, you know what, I'm really not good at this, but I am the boss at this, right? And like, I think it's important. And I got to tell you, I mean, my son, particularly the one, my third son, who really struggles with self-esteem, like, I don't understand it, because he's got so many things that are great going for him. But what we often forget is, and he's a very sensitive kid. He's like, we call him Ferdinand, because he's like strong and tough and on the outside, but he really just wants to smell the flowers, and very sensitive and soft. But I feel like it takes like one negative thing to offset 10 positive things, because he'll focus on that negative things. And so I feel like anything that we can do to sort of stress character, to stress, like right now, socially, my kids have trouble because they're very deep kids. I'm a deep person. I talk to my kids about loyalty, compassion, kindness, all of that. And I think that sometimes they struggle, particularly as teens, because everybody's me oriented, which is the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And people really are not thinking about feelings or thinking about other people. They're focused on themselves. And my kids, I've taught and emphasized to really think about other people, but I also have to process that with them and say, you know what? They're not being mean. It's not personal. It's just, that's not their priority. This isn't what their focus is. This is something that's important to you, but it's not necessarily important to them. It doesn't mean they don't like you, or they don't, it just means, you know, like processing with them, I think is really important. But again, also helping them understand, yeah, maybe you're not good at this, but you're good at this. So, yeah.
Yeah, being real is important. I feel like it goes back to like what we were saying before, like being honest and open with your kids, debriefing. Like, you can still give your kids this sense of, I'm good at something, while also acknowledging that they're not going to be great at everything.
Right.
No one's great at everything. And like knowing that and giving power to that being okay might just make them a little more successful in the things that they are good at.
Exactly. And helping them understand too, that there are people out there, like, not everybody can be good at everything. And everybody is a star at something.
Yes.
You just got to find what that something is. And I think the more vulnerable you are as a parent or a teacher, as far as like just that realness, the more it makes it okay for them and tangible, because they look up to us. Hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah, hopefully.
So then how can our students use their strengths to overcome challenges?
Yeah, well, so I'll give an example. I feel like, and I always say, like, every student comes to the table with a different set of cards, right? Unfortunately, much of the education system is sort of playing to a certain deck, right? It's focused on certain cards. And I feel like everybody has a strength. And I think that I wish that we did a better job with multisensory learning. And I think when you're in special education, or you're already on an IEP or something, but let's face it, there are a lot of kids that struggle, that don't necessarily qualify, or they don't have a parent that's saying, we need to get this person tested.
Yeah.
right? And teachers, I have a lot of teacher friends that are sort of worried about recommending that a kid gets tested because they get in trouble from the school system, because that costs money for the school system. So what a better education system we would have if we sort of taught multi-sensory teaching, right? Because so I have one of my sons is a visual learner. He is like right now for his senior project, he's doing a documentary film about what it's like to have an invisible disability.
Wow.
And this is a kid that reading is not his thing. Writing is not his thing. Language is very difficult for him to communicate. The words come out differently. So he knows that, right? Because this is something that we've worked on, to own what you're not good at and where you struggle. But where his strength is that visual processing. Like my husband got a drone, and my son figures it out immediately, fiddles with it, and has the drone up and running and does these amazing videos. And I'm like, whoa. He wanted to learn to be a better soccer goalie. So he looks at videos. Now I could put him in a camp where he's learning auditorily, like the coach is coaching him and talking. He's not going to get that. He gets overwhelmed by that. And there are so many other factors that detract from his learning. But yet if he sits and watches film, he's got it like that, and he just, and then he'd come to me and he'd say, okay, Mom, can you do these drills with me? I saw it on these videos. So let's do these drills. So I always would say to him, okay, if you don't understand something, if we could watch a movie, for example, if he could pick a book where there's a movie and maybe read the book with help, with support, but then watch the movie, he's really going to get the concept by watching the movie.
Yeah.
Right. So understanding, and I know a lot of teachers do that, but even like if I remember in a couple of science lectures that he had in middle school, I had said, because he was really struggling understanding the concept and writing out the stuff, and they'd say, I think he's got it, but then he doesn't do well on the tests. So if he could, instead of write out the words, if he could do a diagram, even like draw a diagram or a picture, right? Same thing when he's reading a book, drawing a picture or little sort of stick figures or whatever, we could draw the scene instead of writing notes, right? So understanding that kind of thing, like I'm not good at this, but I can use this to help me overcome that, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And another one of my sons is he's more of an auditory learner. So he might see something or somebody explains it, somebody does something on the board, and then he needs another auditory check-in. Like, okay, now tell me, right? But he has trouble, verbal reasoning, I think, was one of the challenges they had for him, that he was really strong, putting like in visual reasoning or spatial reasoning, but not verbal reasoning. So anyway, it's understanding that and then helping him connect it to, okay, this is why I struggle with this, but I'm really good at this. So how can I use this to overcome this?
Yeah. It's that, like, I feel like we grew up with everyone saying, like, I used to rely on my doodling strengths. So I couldn't take notes very well. And I got in trouble one day because I had just been doodling all over my page, until I was able to advocate for myself and tell my teacher, I was like, well, actually, if you look at my doodles, like I'm drawing everything that you're talking about, like I'm making little notes. And so then he started changing his PowerPoint presentations and would have like a visual for whatever he was talking about up there. And so it was funny because I was the only student in the next lecture that when he took the words off of the slide and just had the picture, he asked a question and I like identified the person he was talking about. And he was like, oh, holy cow. Okay, doodle all you want. Like,
Exactly.
So,
but how many kids get in trouble for that?
Yeah, you ask kids constantly to lean out of their strengths, get outside of their comfort zone, which is a great thing. You want them to get outside their comfort zone, but also leaning into our strengths is not a bad thing. Leaning into our strengths and utilizing them appropriately actually helps us overcome, like you're talking about, overcome these struggles.
Absolutely. I had a little boy that came to see me who has a lot of anxiety, learning disabilities, dyslexia, and he would get in trouble at school all the time because he was a fidgeter. He couldn't sit still. And again, the teacher, sort of their expectation for their own comfort is for everybody to be seated and not moving because it's distracting and all of this. So, you know, those things that you put on your fingertip to check your heart rate and your pulse oximeter. It's called a pulse oximeter, but it checks your oxygenation and your heart rate. So I have these mood toolboxes that I make for kids, and in them they have this pulse oximeter. So he's like, "What is this?" Because he's like a fidgeter, constantly fidgeting. And I said, "Put it on your finger." And so he puts it on his finger, and his heart rate's like 90. Okay. Then he's like, "Now what?" I said, "Okay, do 10 jumping or 20 jumping jacks." So he does 20 jumping jacks. Now, what would you expect his heart rate to do?
Go up.
Go up.
Go up. His went down.
Interesting.
So you know what that tells me? He has all this kinetic energy inside of him that is like, it's like he's a ticking time bomb. So when you make him sit, it's like inside of him, it's like he's just got the heebie-jeebies, right? Like he's got to move, and he can't sit, but he's trying to sit. And then his anxiety starts because I'm going to get yelled at because I'm going to have to move and I feel like I'm going to explode. But I said, when he moves, and if you allow him like a standing desk or something where I get it, you don't want him distracting, but you can put them someplace on the periphery. So whether they're behind the classroom or whatever, and let this kid move, he's got it. He's much more dialed in and engaged.
Yeah, because you're asking.
We assume he's not paying attention. He's fidgeting. He's not paying attention. No, he's actually able to pay attention more when you allow him to move.
Yeah, I actually had a very similar conversation with another teacher. She wanted this particular student to sit at his desk and complete a task activity. And I was very much against the idea because I told her, you're asking his brain to do two things that he's not comfortable doing at the same time. I was like, what if I told you to, I don't know, eat a sandwich and talk to me on the phone at the same time? Like, you just can't do those two things at the same time. I was like, if you want him to focus on sitting at his desk, then he needs to sit at his desk and fidget and move with something. And the only thing he's working on is staying in his personal space. So that is perfect. That's all his brain has to think about. But then if you want to add in an academic task, you have to let him move his body and move around. And sure enough, when he's allowed to move his body, he's able to manipulate his task box and complete it. But I was like, you can't ask him to make his brain do two things at the same time. It's
but that's using your strength to overcome your challenge, right?
Exactly.
And allowing kids to do that. That's what is hard, is we have sort of this box that we're putting everybody and everything in, saying, this is our expectation, instead of sort of, and I get it, you can't let everybody sort of just have a free-for-all, but you can help kids figure out what do you need in this moment for you to be able to. It's hard. The challenge is sitting still and focusing. Okay, so what if we take the sitting still part out? Then you could focus, but you're going to focus better if you have some sort of movement. Now, it can't be a crazy spastic movement because that's distracting. So let's figure this out, right? I mean, that's using a strength to overcome a challenge.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So as we begin to end our conversation, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience?
I think, a big thing is really so many adults want to fix the kids, right? And our goal, our passion, my reason for being here on earth is to nurture and help grow healthy, strong, well-adjusted kids, right? If I had a magic wand, I would save the world for children, right? But I don't. But what I realized that we can do, and when I used to work with kids, I realized I can't change a child's world until I change the adult and the habits of the adult, because the adult's energy is going to impact the environment and going to impact the child's energy. So I have an ebook that I put together that's called The Warrior Woman Reset, and it's 10 ways to pause with purpose. And I'm happy, I'll give you the link so you can include this, but it's really a way to reconnect to how we ourselves are out of balance. And many of us are heading towards burnout. It is hard. Having a child with special needs is a very challenging thing because you feel alone. You feel like you're constantly in fight or flight. Teachers, you're constantly in fight or flight because you've got all these demands on you, and you don't really, nobody knows how to pause. So they feel like they're constantly on this hamster wheel. So this really learning how to pause and reconnect to yourself and your own needs and reset your own energy is really where your greatest power lies. And when you do that, you will be able to be more present and more connected to either your child or the kids that you work with. So many of us are trying to put out and control kids behaviors. It's not how it works. And kids are so good at seeing the hypocrisy in the adults in their world. They really are. And it's hard for them to buy into something that the adults aren't buying into. So I think that, if one take home from this is really like, tune into your inside world, because your inside world is going to affect and impact your outside world, which is going to affect and impact a child's inside world. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
Definitely can't wait to check out your ebook.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I love to give talks too. So I speak at CPAC meetings, parent teacher things. Like I said, I'm talking at a nursing school. I love to do workshops. So, and it's really all about sort of managing our own self, so then we can better manage the kids in our world and help support the kids in our world, which is really why we do what we do, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
This has been an awesome chat.
Sure. I will say too, one quick little thing. My son, who had all these challenges, was in several different schools. At 3 years old, was on IEPs. I am so excited to say that he just finished his last day of high school yesterday, or this past Friday, and he got accepted to college, which I never thought was going to happen. So,
yay! Congratulations!
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys have to have a fun little party.
Oh, we did.
Oh, I'm sure. That's a great moment.
It is. Yes. It is.
That's awesome.
It's
celebrate
like
the
everything
successes.
comes together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed this episode of Ability Driven Teaching, go ahead and leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at Ability Driven Teaching. And make sure you check out our links in the show notes to find Jen.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.